Hello there. What's going on? What? Yes. All right. Well, I think it's working. All right. Hello there. What's going on, everybody? We are live. We are doing Mando chat. We're gonna be talking the Mandalorian and all kinds of fun stuff from the final two episodes because it was a two-parter. And with me today is Shawn Morris from the Terrain Studio as well as Legion Academy. Hi, Shawn. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're having a good time today. We've got a lot to talk about, and I've got the slides all out of order here. There we go. This happens when you do it live. No, my slides messed up. But so for anybody who is joining us and is not familiar with the Terrain Studio, because a lot of people have probably seen your work if they aren't familiar with maybe the name, can you tell us a little bit about the Terrain Studio?
Sure. So the Terrain Studio is just kind of a homebrew company. I started building kind of in my wife's parents' basement about maybe 13 or 14 years ago, just sort of tinkering away. At a few things. I started primarily in the 15 mil scale, moving through Flames of War is my primary platform. And then I sort of started transitioning into a few other games as kind of work presented and different companies were looking for some things. And then as soon as Legion launched, I started probably about 6 months before Legion came out, basically at the announcement, started tinkering with that. And basically since that time, I've done no 15 mil and done exclusively Legion terrain and only Legion terrain. So far, it's no signs of slowing down and super, super enjoyable to work at a slightly larger scale.
Awesome. Now, we were talking earlier a little bit about Marvel Crisis Protocol too. I thought I saw like you were like exploring like the possibility of doing some, or that would be. I mean, they're about the same scale, really. So you can like one terrain should work for both, right?
Yeah, so I'm not currently playing Crisis Protocol, and so one of the things that I really find about building is, in order to have a real true aspect outside just the visual aspect of the game, wanting to understand the nuances of the game and gameplay, you really kind of want to be immersed at least in the fundamentals of the game. So I
Sure.
haven't got into to playing that again. Legion keeps me exceptionally busy. So
It
a
does, especially
couple.
with their release schedule. It's
Yeah,
very busy product right now.
and I kind of have a backlog of ideas that I want to do, Patreon tutorials, all that sort of stuff just keeps me really tied in. So to kind of diverge into another game at this point, while possible, I just feel that might take away a little bit from the love that I have for Legion right now. So
Nice. I understand. I've done a little bit with Crisis Protocol, and I do enjoy it. But I think from a terrain perspective, I think while at first like Crisis Protocol looked like this amazing terrain type of game, it turns out terrain doesn't really like it's used for throwing, and that's almost it. Like it's not like I feel like Legion is takes such better advantage of terrain, and so like Crisis Protocol doesn't use it to its fullest extent. Like there's no true line of sight. I can stand. There can be a giant building between us, but if my character's height is 4, then I'm bigger than the building and can see you, even though I physically can't. There's a lot of just weird nuances like that where, I feel like Legion does it a lot better. So, but you guys also have Legion Academy too. So, can we talk about that for a little bit?
sure. So Legion Academy is a podcast I do with Joe DePinto. He's out of Chicago. So we usually are we're one of the first podcasts out, if not the first podcast out every week. So we kind of sit in that first slot. So sometimes you're kind of first to things depending on when the release is. Sometimes you're last to things. So we kind of like that. We've really sort of enjoyed going at the start of the week. It just tends to coincide nicely with games that we might have played over the weekend, just so we're kind of fresh in our heads when we're talking about those.
Nice.
So the Legion Academy, we do a smattering of things. Obviously, I talk a little bit about terrain and sort of that aspect. And Joey's a competitive Legion player, and I sort of like to think I'm a competitive Legion player. So we talk a lot about that. We have been really sort of catering to one part of our podcast about getting new people in the game and how to sort of be champions for the game. So we talk a lot about that. We do tactics and tips and things like that as well. But one of the things that we really like to do is talk about how we're growing our communities in our respective environments. So and here in the train studio, we generally play every week, if not a couple times a week. And so I've really dedicated it's part of my studio space to doing that, either skirmish or full games, and kind of moving into now doing more live streaming of gaming as well.
That's the dream, I think. Yeah, I think you're living the dream. I wish I could do a little bit more gaming than I get to do, although this week has been pretty nice. I got to game a little bit, so I'm kind of happy about that. I'm turning 40 this week, so my wife decided she's going to like kind of let the reins loose a little bit, and I've got to do a little extra gaming. But yeah, I wish I could do twice a week. I would just be like in heaven. So how do you feel about the new skirmish format, by the way?
Oh, if you've had a look at the streaming tests that we've been doing, I'm really dedicated to skirmish right now.
Okay.
I love it for multiple reasons. One, I think, as I said, talking about getting people into the game and championing sort of that intro level. It's really, really nice now that I can tell people you can pick up a box set starter kit with you or your friend, and now you have two legitimate out of the box starter armies. Mm-hmm. And you don't need to add anything to them. So we get out of that thing where it's like you just get this, or you get two of these, and then you get this one other thing, and maybe this, and you're good to go. Now it's like get this, you're good to go.
Right. I wish more FFG games were like that, where like a core set was literally your core, and you didn't need anything else, and then you just expanded based on what you wanted. Yeah.
Right. I love the influx of new missions. I like the fact that we're not trying to adapt the pre-existing 800-point formats to fit skirmish. I love the fact that it's reintroducing or reinvigorating me to use units that I probably am not using at 800 for a variety of reasons. Having discussions last night where somebody's like, "Oh, I'm going to take double Wookiees." Well, I haven't seen double Wookiees in a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of Palpatine. I haven't seen, you can have single commander lists, and you don't need to take a whole bunch of other things, and those are competitive. You can less reliance on the fact like, oh, I'm losing the range game, because the range game is kind of mitigated at skirmish. Exactly. There's a lot more melee. The 5 turns makes a huge difference. Although the game is only 1 turn shorter, I just feel that it plays almost twice as fast.
Sure, because you have to reach less far. You have so much fewer guys, and I think that's a good thing too. And also, I would guess that it probably has a more fun feel, because hey, I can bring more of a experimental list if I want. If I lose, no problem. We can play again in the same amount of time as one game would have taken, right?
You're absolutely right. That's the one thing that ability to kind of roll it over and go again. You get 2 games in the same span that you do 1. Yeah. That's always great. I like the fact that you can play a game, have a mistake, but then quickly have another game where you can get back into it and don't make that mistake twice, as opposed to like going to local store, maybe you play Thursday nights or Wednesday nights, whatever. You lose a game and you got a whole week to just kind of stew and mill about that, and yes. You really wanted to flip that and go again, and I think skirmish lends really well to doing that.
Well, that's fun. I think that's some great points. I have said to a couple of people that skirmish is not my favorite format. I really prefer the 800 point, because I even view casual games from a certain point of view as just tournament practice, and I have a harder time viewing skirmish as that. But that's just me. I still like the fact that it's out there. I love having it be an officially recognized format rather than just a homebrew thing, because now that they've got official objectives to go along with it, it gets everybody on the same sheet of music. And so I think it's a great format. But speaking of other Legion stuff, I think like the Mandolorian as a show has got a lot of stuff that hopefully is going to make its way into our game at one point. Especially, there has been a lot of talk of sub-factions that were hinted at, and I think this show gives us so much as far as that. So I also want to throw out something else for everybody who is watching right now. If you're interested in the Terrain Studio or Legion Academy, there are links down in the description below, so be sure to check those out and show some love to Shawn here and for all the hard work he's done. By the way, you've also done all of these amazing terrain tables for the FFG's using like in their live streams, and if you've demoed Legion at a convention, you've probably played on some of Shawn's work. So I think it's fantastic work. So definitely check them out. You're gonna love what you see. Got to throw out a spoiler warning as well for anybody who's tuning in, because we are going to talk about both episodes 7 and 8. we kind of had a big holiday here last week, and it kind of threw a lot of things out of whack. Plus, there was a big movie that came out. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, but I think it was Star Wars related. So it did not do a Mando chat for episode 7, or for chapter 7 rather. So we're gonna be doing chapter 7 and then chapter 8 together. And if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Questions for me or for Shawn, non-fish related questions would be best. I'm just gonna throw that out. All right. All right. So
I don't have a favorite fish, by the way, so I'm not going to answer that question.
All right. So this was chapter 7, The Reckoning, and this was like the first part of a two-parter. All in all, really good episode, and I think it was the first episode that kind of left us with a cliffhanger. Everything else has been kind of self-contained. And I know this one we're going back like 2 weeks, but what did you think of this episode so far, Shawn?
I really liked. I think I'm going to call them package deal. I really liked chapter 7 and 8 together. I thought the story was pretty awesome. There was some like not necessarily sad moments, but like a couple plot twists that maybe I probably wouldn't have predicted, and then a couple that I thought were like, okay, that's fairly obvious. I'm just going to go on record as saying as my favorite character by far, who's kind of stole the season for me, is IG Unit.
Okay.
Officially Nurse Spot, maybe.
Nurse
I
Spot,
think would be a much more appropriate name. Really, I loved how they sort of introduced early in the series and then brought back, and then I would say probably made a fairly pivotal character in the last couple. So I just sort of envision Mando and IG in another time just being the best of friends. So they kind of gave me that vibe in the final 2 chapters.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. I think I like the way that they're doing like this whole show, and that they're kind of setting things up but not leaving you in too much suspense. And I've said from the beginning, like they'll give you something that makes you ask all these questions, like, what do you mean they can't take off their helmets? But then like the very next episode, they like maybe answer it, so you're not like left with these huge confounding questions for like a whole year, like happens in between movies, or 2 years. But in this show too, they're setting up characters that are going to come back, and we've seen there's still some questions that are unresolved, which I feel like are really good premises for season 2. But I don't want to rush in. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But I think that's something that they're doing that's really well. So the episode starts with, he starts off with a little message. Grief Karga calls the Mando and said, "Hey, I got a chance. Everything will be forgiven. You just have to come back here, and the Empire's taken over, and I need your help now. So if you help me, we're gonna wipe the slate clean." And I think immediately we were kind of suspecting that something was up. I don't know. I didn't believe him. Did you believe him at this point?
No, I mean, it was within the show, terrible acting. Terrible poker player. Right. I think Mando was well aware he was running into a trap, but I'm not sure that he felt that maybe there was other options at that point. So, and we've kind of seen a couple situations where he's sort of had no choice, but makes it's the no choice, as we say sometimes. So
yeah, it's you have to pick the lesser of two evils, and I think they did a good job of. I think they did a good job of selling you on this, because how many episodes have we seen other, bounty hunters hunting him down, and he just can't catch a break? Especially episode 4 was like one of my favorite ones. He actually thought he would be able to settle down there or leave the kid or whatever, and then they're just always coming after him. He's just like, this kid's never gonna be safe. So at least I know it's a trap, so I can go in and then start going around recruiting friends. So. He goes and he recruits Cara Dune, which is definitely somebody I think we all wanted to see again. I think she might be my favorite character out of this whole first season. Absolutely love Gina Carano's performance in this character, especially somebody who is not, really well known for her act. I don't think she was that well known for acting. Obviously, she's done a few things, but she was more of a fighter, and it just blew me away with her performance, and I really believed that she was this hardened rebel, with a little bit of PTSD. You can see it in certain. You can see it in certain scenes, where she's like catching her breath and she's terrified, but she fights through it. Like I love her performance in this.
I love how convincing, or how much effort Mando had to put in to convince her to, once it was no, 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 there's Imperials, I'm in. So
Yep,
that.
absolutely.
And I do love the smattering of comic relief throughout. I think eight had a lot of gems in it for sure.
Oh
But
yeah.
I do really appreciate how they sort of throw that stuff in, and it's not forced. It's not like a sitcom where you have the forced laughter, or the audience sort of clapping kind of thing. You have to either pick up on them or you don't.
Yep.
But I think they're quite subtle, some of them, and I appreciate that.
I think Star Wars always had humor in it. It just wasn't always super obvious. It wasn't always in your face, but it was always there. And like even Han Solo's stuff in Episode 7. Oh, we're fine. How are you? Like it was great. And it was, I think, back in like 77, it might have been a little more subtle, but yeah. A lot of it, it's natural and it's real. There's humor all throughout life. So yeah.
I think one of the things that you have to keep in mind too in this show, where they actually use the language to sort of set those tones, is you have an IG unit that has no facial expressions. You have Mando, who has no facial expressions. Like a lot of the characters just don't seem to have any humanoid expressions where you can kind of pick up on what they're trying to put down. And so I think that leaves more to the dialogue, and that's kind of, I appreciate that as well. It's something that you don't see in a lot of shows.
No, absolutely, and it's got to be really hard too. I know Pedro Pascal was talking, in some interviews about how hard it was to act when you can't use your face, and you can really see. I think he did a great job. There's so many scenes, where like their body language really kind of tells it. But then he goes to get Kuil after getting Cara Dune, and that's after basically Baby Yoda kind of starts playing with the buttons again and knocks them out of hyperspace. And she,
Yeah.
you're gonna need somebody to watch him. And he's like, okay, I think you're right. So, Kuil didn't take a whole lot of convincing. It took a little bit. But like the big funny part there is that when like the IG unit comes in, and they like freaks everybody out. I think we were all kind of surprised there. I, for one, was really hoping to see him again. I thought there was so much hype with him being in the trailer for this show, and for him only to kind of be in the first episode only, it was kind of almost false advertising. So I was going to be disappointed if we didn't see him again. So I was really glad to see him show up.
I was a little concerned at first that the IG unit was converted to some sort of like butler sort of service unit, but I was much happier to see the role of nurse bot, because I think that was much more fitting. So,
Oh no, absolutely. And it started out, it was kind of minor. You just got almost like a jokey side of it in this episode, but like once episode 8 starts, you get to see the full extent of his new programming, which is great. But we get this great montage of like his rebirth or his reprogramming and reconditioning, and it was really kind of sweet. Like it was a little emotional in a way. The way like Queel, like Nick Nolte, who did the voice of Queel, like really did a good job, voicing this character and giving him the, that personality. And I don't know, I really liked that. But he drops the box on this little lizard. I thought it was
yeah,
hilarious.
I can kind of see a little bit of Nick Nolte and Queel actually. So
Yeah, I think sometimes they design characters around somebody that they want to do the voice, and that's pretty cool. We have a question from the chat. Goku is asking, "Do you think the Razor Crest is a modified lat?" I don't think it is, but I saw a video earlier that hinted at it. I don't think so. I think it's probably. I mean, I can see design similarities, but I don't. It doesn't look like it's been modified from anything else. It looks like it's its own class of ship, just maybe perhaps by the similar manufacturer. Like a lot of ships in Star Wars look similar, like a Z-95 and an X-wing kind of look about the same. I think.
yeah, I think maybe the side doors maybe kind of lend a little bit to the lat design, and a little bit of that, the sort of the raised, the engines are kind of raised up on the backside. So I can definitely see the parallels for sure. I don't think one is modified off the other, but I mean, I don't know any different either. So
Yeah, I can cite other ships that look that same way too, like if you play X-wing, the Wookiee, the Ozatuk gunship is very very similar design, and just I think it's just a common, it makes sense too if you want to be able to drop off people, you follow that helicopter style, doors on the sides, engines up top. that I think is very efficient. Okay, so moving on, we get this whole montage, and I was actually convinced by the end of this episode that this whole montage about Queel talking about, how the droid is just a collection of whoever programmed him. I thought for sure. Spoiler warning, Queel doesn't exactly make it, but I thought he was like that whole montage was leading up to. At one point, I thought the droid was going to say, "I have spoken," and we were like, "Oh, Queel is now inside the droid because he built the droid, so he'll still be with us." And it was going to be kind of one of those like a Hallmark moment, but it ended up not happening. So I was, I was a little, concerned like that. Looking back, I'm thinking, boy, they spent a lot of time on that training montage for not a lot of payoff. I mean, maybe it's going to help with the Mandos, like help him not hate droids so much. It's almost like an expose on racism from a certain point, or prejudice. Maybe not racism, but prejudice, and like how we need to, like a lesson on how we need to overcome and grow. I don't know. Or maybe I'm looking too much into it.
I think we did see him soften towards droids a little bit, towards the end of the series for sure. At least in the case of for IG, but I think maybe you are right. Maybe he's laying the groundwork, or they're laying the groundwork for a little bit more of an interaction. Because I mean, not interacting with droids in the Star Wars universe seems difficult. So,
yeah, it's that would be a huge like we saw it in the very first episode when he wouldn't take that transport, and he had to take the crappy air transport because he refused a droid services.
Yeah, or fixing his ship in whatever episode that was, 4 or 5 there. So
yeah,
just again. So I think that was that's a nice understory in season 1, but probably too tough to maintain throughout however long this is going to be. So maybe this was the way to kind of, okay, we can sort of have a happy medium here where maybe he'll figure out where some droids he may have a little more acceptance for. So.
No, that's a good point. Good point. So once he's got like the whole crew, and we've got the blurgs on board and all of this stuff, and they're flying. They have some time in hyperspace, and we see Mando and Cara Dune arm wrestling. And wouldn't you know it, I've seen this from dogs who think when you're playing around and they get like defensive, you see little baby Yoda force choke Cara Dune, and wow, that was kind of a surprise. He got her good, and it kind of. Like was almost a parallel for what Queel was saying, because he kind of like leans in and he's just like, he just doesn't know how to use his power. He's not good or bad. He needs to be taught, and I think that's kind of like things aren't necessarily predominantly good or evil. I kind of get like that they were trying to tell you a message about how this guy, like they're laying more groundwork for how he needs training.
I kind of see Queel. So I'm an educator. That's my profession. I really like Queel from the he's kind of a teacher of Mando throughout the series, right? And I love he's basically teaching I feel humanistic qualities. So you have this person who has like super training and has all the combat experience, no ability to interact with really anybody outside of himself, and so Queel kind of plants all these. Whether he's dealing with IG or whether he's talking to Cara Dune, whether he's talking to Mando, planting all these little lessons throughout the episode. So I really appreciate that sort of story. But he does it in a very matter of fact way, and that's what I really appreciate that about him as well as a character. So. As you had said, maybe he doesn't make it, but spoiler there. But I do really like Queel. Like I think that this whole series has done a really good job of making it not just about Mando.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, granted, he's the main character, but there's so many more characters, and they've built up your ability to care about these characters, and that's something that I think more Star Wars needs to do. And this isn't even a criticism of the movies. I enjoyed all of the movies, every single one of them, some more than others. But the books, a lot of the books that I read, like they rush characters at you and expect you to care about them as much. And I think they need more build up. And this show is doing this great. Especially this was Queel's 3rd episode. And and like you're starting to see him as that sage, that beacon of wisdom, and or that compass, or that moral compass, perhaps, and so I like that. And the same thing with his talks with Cara Dune, that he admitted that he was on a different side. He was on the Imperial side during the war, but he fought his way out of it. It's almost like that. You're never too far gone to try to make amends and do the right thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm going a little too far into that. That was certainly one of the some parallels from other stories too. But we land. We get kind of this big meeting by Grief Karga and a couple of hired thugs, kind of to escort them into town. And obviously, these guys look pretty unsavory. It seems obvious that things are very tense right at the beginning, and he wants to see the baby. Everybody's got their hands on their guns, and unfortunately, it goes kind of smooth.
I kind of like the whole approach. Like, he's surprised that Mando brings a crew, and yet feels no problem about showing up with 4 guys. So
yeah, he's like, you were supposed to make this easy on me, Mando. Yeah, no.
Exactly. I mean, does it? Let's just say he comes alone. You can't have the same storyline because they're not going to take the chance of going into town. Like, they have the opportunity to get the drop on them. That was the plan all along.
Mm-hmm.
And they all sort of, I don't know, they have kind of this weird interaction sitting around the fire, which we're coming to, is like, this sort of like, they kind of seem on the same side. And I think we start to see the change of plans, if you will, in terms of the mindset.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's basically the very next scene. They're attacked. They get these, I believe they were Minox. They certainly looked like Minox. They might have been, it's there's a larger variation. There's a cousin of Minox in one of the latest Thrawn books that I don't recall the name of right now. But they I think they kill they carry off one of the blurgs. They kill another one. And Grief Karga's really badly wounded. And he's not going to make it. And of course, Baby Yoda kind of walks up, and we finally get to see like the thing we've been hoping for since episode 2. When Baby Yoda kind of walked up and had that little hand, like he was gonna heal Mando, and then they pushed him away, and that was one of those funny bits. Like the audience is like watching, oh, what's gonna happen? And then he just kind of slams him away, like, get out of here! What are you doing? It was kind of funny, but it was also realistic. But this time he finally gets to do it, and it's Queel who says, no, let him do it, and so it's like, it's that whole, like, good thing he was there, otherwise, they would have been freaked out and put this baby away. And so we get this amazing, force healing ability, and it kind of knocks the wind out of the baby a little bit, so he kind of slumps down and kind of goes back to sleep, and after that. Grolix, thank you, Nerf Herder. So I had asked what was the larger cousin to the Minox, and I couldn't remember the name in there, called Grolix, and I think that's what type of birds these are. But then again, it's an alien world; they could all be different species.
I think in the episode, I was doing some reading on some of the episodes just because, just to see what people are saying, and I think they actually indicate that one of the blurgs was possibly shot by friendly fire in the episode. So one gets carried away, one gets killed by friendly shot. So
that might be the one that, like, the one bird lands on him, and I was like thinking he was okay, but he doesn't move. You don't see him again after that. So he very well could have. That's good observation.
Yeah.
So basically, next morning they get to the outskirts of town, and there's the scene where you see the bounty hunters kind of pull their guns, and Grief Karga spins around, and surprise, he was kind of he decides, hey, I can't, I had to kill these guys. I couldn't take you in, not after what Baby Yoda did. He saved my life, so I guess I owe him a life debt now. So yeah, that was pretty nice. And of course, they didn't believe him still, but he had earned at least a little bit of trust at this point. I think at this point of the episode, I was beginning to trust him. Like the cynic in me was like, he might still be setting them up. But then I was like, but he did get his life saved. I think we can believe him. So he takes them in, and they start walking in under escort. And you do really see how heavily occupied this town is. Cool little detail here. I do all of my Imperials for Legion with like a white base. I decided I was going to do all of my Imperials like they were on Hoth. And so I did a set of speeder bikes all in white, just like these speeder bikes. And I was so happy to see white speeder bikes. I was just like, yes, this looked just like mine for Legion. So I always kind of like seeing alternate paint jobs, especially when it's like I've already done something just like that.
I also appreciate the fact that in here, I mean, if you think about the original trilogy Star Wars movies, all we ever see is rank and file stormtroopers at attention, at guard, standing still, never talking, never doing anything. I love the sort of the candid conversations that you get to pick up, the sort of laid back sort of what would you do when somebody's not standing around looking at you the entire time. I really find that's they don't have to say anything. You just kind of get that sense that these are you know clearly not worried about the Emperor or Vader or anything like that here.
True. Their body language says an awful lot, and you can really tell that this is a shattered empire. You know.
Although I guess a little foreshadowing, potentially some of those ones are also no longer here at the end of Chapter 8. So
yeah.
some of the bigger slackers. So yes.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you kind of let your guard down. Apparently. Yeah.
Or interrupt someone.
Oh, this is true. This is true. So they make it to the same cantina that we've seen from the first couple of episodes, and now Werner Herzog's character, this Imperial, is now sitting at the same booth that Greef Karga used to sit at, and so it's a nice little foreshadowing of, oh, this used to be your seat. Well, it's my seat now. Come on, I'll let you sit in the guest seat, and. Offers them a drink, and they kind of begin to have the whole deception. Apparently this is the guy that he wanted him to kill. Like, this is the guy he wanted dead because this is the guy who's kind of like the governor of this planet. He's the top Imperial at least on this particular planet. And this kind of tells us a lot because at the end of this scene we're introduced to Moff Gideon, who is a bigger deal, and apparently he is like the long-term villain from what we can tell. He's the guy behind the curtain, and I don't know how far his reach extends or not. I think that's a big question we're going to have for next season, like how much, if they're just on this planet or if they extend to multiple planets. But this guy makes a really good entrance by just lighting the entire bar up. I was surprised at this. I honestly I had a couple of questions because, and I'd like to get your take on this. We get this amazing, like, he goes, I think you should check again. And as soon as he said check again, I'm like, oh, does he already have the baby? Why would he say check again? And then all of a sudden they're killed. And I'm like, wait a second, you didn't give them a chance to check again. You just opened up, and all these Death Troopers. Now I love that the Death Troopers did this, this incredible shooting job. I like seeing Death Troopers like really do better than Stormtroopers. Like, I think they should, and I think they did a good job to kind of make them a little bit more formidable in this particular kind of city center that we're at. But I don't know what he meant by check again. I don't know if I was just missing something, or maybe he just likes to screw with people before he kills them. I have no idea. Did you have any?
It might be just one of those lines that are meant to do exactly like it made you do. Take pause. You're suddenly just trying to digest that phrase, and then boom, they hit us with now the side of the cantina is gone as they just open fire and demolish the place. So, but maybe that's exactly it. It was just kind of that take pause, or that's the only thing I can kind of think about it, because he didn't actually look once. So like he hadn't actually checked the first time. So what does check again imply? There was no check the first time, really. So
yeah, and I was curious too, because he didn't, or like you said, he didn't check the first time. So I'm thinking, for me, when he says check again, like that's telling the audience. It's like almost like he's saying to the audience, I know they don't really have the baby in there, and that's why he lit them up. But I'm like, on a second viewing, I went back and watched it again, and I'm like, well, he doesn't have the baby yet. He doesn't know the baby's not in there. He kind of risks the baby's life. I mean, again, maybe he doesn't care if the baby's alive or dead. From what I gather, I don't think he really cares. Because he certainly put the baby's life in danger multiple times throughout this and the next episode. But
yeah.
but I think check again might have just been, look, you lost the baby the first time. So I think that's why he kills him, because, hey, you failed, and that's why I had to come here. So like saying check again was probably just to get him to stand up. And this way, so he wouldn't be sitting down, he wouldn't be able to duck for cover, because if he's doing something he can't dodge. I think that might have been it. But
I think we we learn a little bit here, and then certainly more in episode or chapter 8, rather,
Yeah.
that Moff Gideon doesn't really seem to be the most patient individual, and probably doesn't tolerate any a failure of any kind. So maybe that was exactly it. His intent maybe there was to to really kill off everyone who's had disappointed him to that point.
That's probably at least partially true. Now, one interesting suggestion from the comments, Nerf herders suggesting that when the scout troopers scooped up Baby Yoda, that they told him, and that happens after this, but it is entirely possible
Yeah.
that when we see, the camera kind of goes back and forth between this scene and then Queel like riding away. Those don't necessarily have to happen at the exact same time. They could be showing us what happened like 30 seconds ago or 5 minutes ago. So that could have happened as all leading up to it. However, I'm still kind of unclear about that, but yeah, that's very interesting. So the very next thing we see is like he's like on the phone because he kind of heard Mando kind of heard him say check again. So he's like, wait a second, Queel, are you there? We see these bikers kind of ride off, like intercepting the communication, and then they go look for it. So it said this time that Moff Gideon kind of lands in his TIE fighter. So
Which is awesome, by the way.
it is awesome. It's a whole new TIE fighter design. Now, a lot of people have been asked me, like not just through the channel, but like my friends and family who've watched this show. They know I like Star Wars, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't know that's what TIE fighters did." And I'm like, "That's not what they do. They don't. This is the first one that's ever done that that I've seen. But it's very cool."
It kind of made me think, don't all TIE fighters do this? This seems like just a very good way of accessing a TIE fighter. It seems a very compact form, and it also looks exceptionally cool, I think.
It does look exceptionally cool. I think maybe more moving parts means there's more things that could break, and so maybe
Sure.
it's not as efficient. And for lots of TIE fighters, I do have a thought, but I don't want to get into episode 9 spoilers. But there's a TIE fighter that some people had some questions about in episode 9, and this might have been one of those. This might have been like basically they might have had some modified TIE fighters that have had hyperdrives. This one might have a hyperdrive. And and it might be like a special type of TIE fighter, but very cool looking TIE fighter. And of course the whole imagery of it is it's landing behind the Death Troopers, and all these legions of TIE fighters come just look amazing. I guess this is called a Outland TIE Fighter subclass, according to the chat, which is really nice. Yeah, it was when you don't have designated landing platforms. Now, I'm going to say this. We don't see how he gets out. All right, so like the top hatch opens and he kind of rises up like there's an elevator pushing him up. And there could be like just little foot pedestals that rise up that extend him to the top. But the next thing we know is like he's standing on top of the thing. And the next thing you know, he's walking on the ground. I'm like, I didn't see a little ladder hanging down. So how in the heck does he get down from there? Like, I want to see the ladder. Of all the attention to detail they have in here, I want to see the little rope ladder or something. I don't know. Maybe he's got like Magna boots that just kind of levitated him down or something. But yeah, great entrance. And then he gets in and basically starts kind of laying down the law. I'm like, well, we're going to kill you guys unless you surrender I think he asks him to surrender the baby or the child, or not what you possess, and kind of he's very vague about how powerful this thing is, and it makes me kind of wonder if there's more to the child than we even know right now as the audience. And I'm really curious about that. I think that's like one of my big questions for season 2. Like, why does he want this so bad? We still don't know what he wanted with this. Whether it was like, I think the predominant theory right now is like to suck the midichlorians out or something like that, or to try to clone it. But I still have no idea.
Cloning could be very well be the theory for sure. I thought his timeline on the negotiations was a little bit suspect. Like you go in with a bang, you blow the wall out, you have all your troops positioned, you give them the ultimatum, you make them realize that they have really no option, and then you're going to give them till nightfall, because that seems appropriate.
I know, like let me give you like 6 hours to think it over. Like that doesn't make sense. Like I wouldn't give people any time. I would give them that's 10 seconds.
Right, that's exactly it. But then he ends up, and then they end up, well, we'll get there, but ends
Yeah.
up sending in some guys to flush him out. But yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. It's like, okay, I'm here.
Mhm.
I've basically presented all theories. You have no options, but
Mhm.
I'm going to give you six hours to decide that you, in fact, or come to the realization that you have no other option either.
Now we are assuming, of course, that it's almost like that it's still early, like midday. Like we don't know what time. It could be like
Sure.
6:30 p.m. and and maybe the sun's getting ready to set or whatever. We don't know if they use daylight savings on this planet or whatever. But
Yeah, fair.
but now knowing now that at the end of the episode it was still daylight, or at the end of episode 8 it was still daylight, we have to assume they had plenty of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the episode ends like with like the biggest cliffhanger we've seen, and that's basically well, I would maybe the second biggest cliffhanger we've seen, but no, probably the biggest, where Baby Yoda gets kind of scooped up and we see Queel's body.
Yeah.
So kind of sad, and it ends right there, and it was like that was unexpected to me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I thought, and I think the show has done a good job at sort of, maybe not every episode sort of making it like, okay, that just ended. There's nothing really that I'm looking forward to the next episode. There's nothing I'm kind of left wondering about. This was definitely that. This is why I kind of say 7 and 8 are a package deal for me, for sure. But I was also a little bit upset that because it's one of those situations where in any other movie you might think Queel just makes it in, right? You think he gets to the ship. I was actually thinking he was going to get to the ship. IG was going to come out, go into protect mode, and actually shoot the speeders.
Yeah.
That's initially what I thought, but I think they did a much better job at sort of tying it all in. But so unfortunately,
really
Queel doesn't make it. But yeah,
Yeah, no, it was, and I wasn't. There were some people even saying, "Hey, is he still alive? Was he just laying there?" And I think when you see somebody laying on the ground, that usually means they're dead. We did have one other episode earlier in the season. I think it was episode 5, where there's that other bounty hunter was laying there dead, and some people said, "Oh, she's still alive," and I'm like, no. We showed her 3 times laying on the ground, and then like the next day laying on the ground. I'm pretty sure she's dead. So, which brings us to Chapter 8, Redemption, and it pretty much opens up right where it picked off, and with the 2 speeder bike guys who have picked up Baby Yoda, and they have not gone into town yet. And this is interesting. First off, I loved this entire opening scene. Like,
me too, for sure.
It was absolutely hilarious. And like you were talking about earlier, like what do people do when nobody's watching them? What do people do when like they're kind of able to kind of slack a little bit, and you hear some of the conversation that they have.
Yes.
I guess the lead guy was Jason Sudeikis. So if you watched Saturday Night Live or whatever, and I thought that voice sounded familiar, but it was perfect. I absolutely love that it was him now. But a lot of people are, I guess, really mad at him, or at least tweeting hate for him because he, like, how dare you punch Baby Yoda? So when he did that, right. I kind of cringed. I'm like, oh my god, he didn't just do that, and then he did it again. I'm like, oh my god, stop.
Yeah, I just love the whole back and forth. Like, hey, you better check on him. Hey, you kind of hit him a little bit hard there. You just want to see him. No, I don't. I want to check on the baby. Then the shooting, the shooting scene, or the shooting part of that scene.
Oh my god,
awesome.
They had trying to shoot the can on the ground or whatever it is. And,
yeah.
It's this. Okay, I'm not gonna. I thought they kind of took the humor a little bit too far in this. I mean, maybe not too far, but farther than I expected. Like, I don't think they needed to take the humor as far as they took it, but it was really funny. Like, you had the kind of the joke where Bill Burr, in episode 6, I think it was making the jokes is like, "Oh, sharpshooter for an Imperial," and he's like, "I wasn't a stormtrooper, you jackass," or whatever, and like here they are, like they're taking that joke and taking it to the next level. Absolutely hilarious though. Like, I loved it.
I love. Yeah, and I love when it's miss a couple shots. You're for lack of a better word, you're an idiot. Let me get this. Misses, and I love how he checks the blaster by like shaking it for like a rattle. Like
it sounded like a rattle can, right? It sounded like a can of primer or something.
Yeah, it's like because that's what you do with firearms when they're faulty, is you give them a shake. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, I loved it. It was that was absolutely great. And then of course IG shows up. And then they start shooting at him, and of course they're missing. And the guy eventually walks up to like almost touching the blaster to him. He's like, "All right, I'm not going to be able to miss from this range," and that doesn't go too well for him. And then we see kind of Nurse Bot come out and like kick some butt. and it was awesome. And then he's wearing Baby Yoda on a like what was that movie, the Hangover. Right, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but with dudes wearing the baby, right? Like I'm expecting like memes to show up, like who wore it better, you know? But yeah, totally digging that whole scene with IG coming to the rescue. We get the kind of the opening credits then, and then it goes back into town. So we're going back and forth, and I love this opening scene where they show these stormtroopers start setting up this modified, this heavy E-web, and I think this is a different E-web than the E-webs we've seen before.
I really love how they took, like, that 5 second clip where he's like announcing to them inside, like, we are now setting up an E, and he like goes into like he just
heavy assault repeating.
I thought he was going to go into like the specifications and the rounds per second, and it felt like he was like almost giving an infomercial on this, like, we're just going to shoot you is kind of what I would say. I actually remember when you say anything, you just start blasting in there, like you don't need to tell them what you're setting up. But I thought the entire thing was
particularly proud of this one. If I had written his backstory or something like that, I would say that he probably just acquired this, and he's very, very proud. Like maybe he won it in a game of chance, or he found an old Imperial stockpile, but he's very big on the speech. Now, Giancarlo Esposito, I think that's his name. I haven't seen Breaking Bad, so I wasn't as familiar with this particular actor, but he gives a phenomenal performance in this scene. And very powerful. But I also like he gives a line about this particular E-web. He's like, you may have only been familiar with its predecessor, but it's even more powerful than its predecessor. And so that makes me think it's like a Mark II version of like the E-web. So like I immediately started thinking Legion, and I'm like, oh, because this is big too. Like how about like a bigger E-web, right? Like that would be really fun. I could kind of get behind like a more heavy duty E-web that's costs more and something like that. I don't know. It looks cool enough.
I think he might have been setting the stage too a little bit, like trying to set that fright, saying, you're familiar with what the, predecessor's devastation has been like. You felt the wrath of this, and kind of goes into like, here's the new version. And it was very much a scare tactic. I just thought it was I don't know. For me, it was a little bit of an aside. I do like that he was responsible for giving a little bit of the backstories of each character. I like this piece there.
Oh, no, absolutely. He starts monologuing, and he monologues like he gives us information we've been waiting for all season. Like he drops Din Djarin, the Mandalorian's actual name, and not only that, he gives you Cara Dune's like full name, and he knows all about her, and that spooks him. That spooks him. So I see Nick from chat says that you were guessing Din Djarin. Now I am curious if that was an established name or not, because I thought that was like the first anybody's heard of that name, but I didn't know if that name was a pre-existing name or not. But yeah, really, really nice kind of just whole exposition on the names, and he kind of scares everybody. Although I thought it was a little anticlimactic how he starts off. Kara's full name, I know you. Oh, Din Djarin, I knew you. You're like, oh! And then he goes to Grief Karga, like as the final one. I'm like, well, we already knew his name. Like there was no reveal there. So it's like he played his trump card too soon, and then he like ended like on a weaker intimidation. But really, really good overall scene, and that kind of leads us into this whole backstory where like the Mando's like, dude, he knew my name. That means he's this guy, and yeah. So here's an interesting thing. So he starts to we get another backstory scene, and this is an important one too, because it's showing like when he was the little kid trapped in like the wine cellar or whatever, and right as that super battle droid was getting ready to shoot him, that's where it cut off last time. It was like episode 3, I think, and I was expecting it was going to be a Jedi that saved him. I thought like maybe it was going to be Yoda. Like because this was back during the Clone Wars, or presumably it was back during the Clone Wars, since there's B2 battle droids destroying a city. But I had heard rumors that it was supposed to be a Jedi, and it was not only going to be just a Jedi, but a Jedi that we were familiar with. So I was really looking forward to see who came and saved him. And I thought it might have been Yoda, and that's maybe why he was so apt to protect the child, because he felt like, hey, I've seen one of your species before or something. But no, it turns out it was Mandalorians.
Yeah, I thought he gave some sort of indication in the episode. Maybe it was 7, maybe it was 8, where he didn't really know the species. So I think he's talking.
Yeah,
to,
it was when they were on the ship with Queel and they were arm wrestling.
Yeah, with Queel. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually they were talking a little bit about cloning. And they do that. Is it Death Watch? Is that who it was that came in and saved him? I didn't recognize all of the insignia. I am a little bit rustier on my Mando lore. So it's Death Watch. Now they're big from the Clone Wars, and
that's cool.
And that is also explains why Paz Vizsla was the that heavy Mandalorian. From I think episode 3, the guy that tries to take his helmet off, that eventually comes in and saves him, and it's cool because Paz Vizsla, from House Vizsla, of course, you had Pre Vizsla, who was the leader of Death Watch, and he wielded the dark saber, and of course, we get all of that at the end of this episode. But so it's nice seeing things kind of come full circle here. But it's really cool. Like, I really want Mandalorians in Legion now. We've seen so many of them now. Like
I think we need to have jetpack troopers of some variety. I think that would be so cool. Small units, maybe 3, really quick. Strike type units. But and I mean this
with the jump ability. Jump 1 or jump 2, depending on the jetpack. But yes, and here's the thing. So breaking away from the show a little bit and just kind of pulling back into the game of Legion for a minute. I think this is probably maybe even more exciting for you. I love terrain that is very dynamic, that kind of leads itself to having multiple levels of elevation, or like just doing different things with terrain outside of it just being like, oh, this is heavy cover, here's a tree, here's a barricade, or here's a building. Like, I want stuff with multiple levels. I want to be climbing. I want like there to be some vertical game in my game, and like, a lot of reason we don't do a whole lot of that. We do a little bit of it, but we could do more, is that not that many units have access to like jump abilities. And I think once we start getting more, like once we get more Jedi, once we get more jump troopers and jetpack troopers, it's going to kind of lead to more dynamic battlefield setups. Not always, but people will be more willing to take risks and do stuff, maybe height 2 or maybe even a height 3 piece here and there, to really take advantage of those mechanics.
If you don't mind, I'm going to drop this real quick spoiler, I guess, for upcoming Patreon build. You said tree, you said height 3. I actually, and we were talking skirmish before. What I'm going to be doing is building a skirmish table, and it's going to be set in Kashyyyk, and I'm actually it's going to be designed around a 3-foot tall tree that's actually going to be multi-leveled. So the entire table surface will effectively take place within the tree. So there will be some ground structure as well, but you're probably looking at about a foot diameter for the base, just with the root system. But it's going to take place within the tree. So because the skirmish has such a small platform, and what I've discovered is that you're on top of each other very quickly. What I wanted to do was find some way of using elevation to maybe almost extend the amount of time before units can kind of get into each other in melee. So the multi-level, I think, will be a nice way of increasing surface area without increasing footprint.
That's a fantastic idea. I absolutely love that idea. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be a monster for sure. But very much looking forward to that, and I really am inspired by the whole Kashyyyk world. So I think it would be really nice to do something in the vertical sense, because we've seen a lot of sprawling out, but I don't think that we've seen a lot of multi-height interactions.
No, absolutely. Like you see things like, so they're coming out with like the Imperial bunker, right? Now, a lot of people have done bunkers and stuff like that, but I love the idea of you can have somebody inside and maybe somebody else on top. Well, they're the same, looking down, they're in the same spot, but, they can't see or shoot each other. And so, like, I've always really liked, like, kind of wanted the idea of having multi-level where people can be like on floor 1 or floor 2 and not be able to see each other, but still be within range of like issuing orders and stuff like that. just adds so much. That's a whole different dynamic to the game, and I think
Yeah. One of the things that we've just missed, really, though, is that even though we have height 1 and height 2 terrain, and we have, and obviously surface level interactions, um, the the ability to move up and down is always sort of compartmentalized into action efficiency. I don't want to spend turns doing this and that. I don't want to spend turns climbing or turns or
yes,
actions of clambering. So really the thing that hasn't been done a lot is the ability to move between multiple height terrains while moving on inclines, while moving on, spiral staircases, while moving on. So where you're not limiting units in terms of their movement actions, it's just like, I'm going to move, but I'm going to go on this incline. I'm going to eventually change elevations. I'm going to spend 2 moves to do it. But I'm going to be on a whole other plane now. As opposed to just moving straight vertical up and down, because you're really limited on space.
yeah. Well, it's like having a big elevator too, or maybe you spend an action like for custom terrain too. You can do like an interact action, which pushes a button that opens a door, or sends a signal to the elevator. And now all of a sudden, maybe you and your ATST, if you're all on this giant elevator platform, move up like 6 inches. I love the idea of the action efficiency. And I really like that about Grievous too, how he's got that whole scale. Like he doesn't have to waste an action trying to move up or down too. And I hope we see more things like that in the future.
Yep.
All right, but yes, so more jump abilities is kind of the same thing. So we get this great scene of Deathwatch coming down and just saving this village, which is really cool. And it makes me kind of wonder what planet this was. Because there's little parts of it that look like it was similar to Naboo, although I'm pretty sure it definitely wasn't Naboo. But like some of the buildings have that kind of rounded tops and like, circular structures and square, kind of a blend of each of them. But really, really cool scene. And of course they carry him away at the end, like the lead one carries him away, and we learned that like that's what a foundling is. We kind of guessed that that's what a foundling was. But you get this great kind of scene of him looking down while the other person like is carrying him away, flying away in the jetpack, which gets kind of echoed again at the end of the episode. So really like that.
You just kind of reminded me too. Great photo there. One of the nice things, or one of the things I kind of only reflected on after seeing Chapter 8 was all of the little tidbits of information that get dropped about Mandalorians. Like, it all comes across as like what I've read or what I've heard or what the myth is, and even Mando himself kind of revealing a little bit about what he can and can't do and what's part of the religion and the creed. And I really like how they sort of tell this story around what a Mandalorian is through various people or through various conversations. I really think that's well done in the whole series.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now that it's all done too, I want to sit down and go back and watch all of them again. I think this is one of those shows that you'll be able to just watch over and over again and really enjoy it, because it's not just about what happens, but it's about how it's happening. It's about how good the dialogue is, how good the actors are, how good the direction is. It's so good so many times. So I'm really going to enjoy rewatching this a lot. So we get to IG-88, who's now riding on the speeder bike, and he's got Baby Yoda in there in his front, and Baby Yoda's having the greatest time. I swear they continually surprise you with how cute they can make this thing. It's amazing. So then he comes in, and now all these stormtroopers you were talking about before, all these stormtroopers that were kind of just sitting around being lazy or whatever, now kind of get taken by surprise when there's this spinning, blasty death machine, whirlwind of death, flying through, shooting forward, and then shooting. Oh man, I just thought of something. It'd be nasty enough if they made IG-11 for Legion, but if they make IG-11 on a speeder bike, like if they ever do, like they did this in Rune Wars, where they would make a commander, and like he'd have 2 different ways you could run him. It'd be like on a foot, on foot or mounted, and you could field him one of either way, right, in the same pack. So if they did something like that with IG-11, you have a mounted version of him, and he's just spinning around, just like killing everything that he rides past. That would be crazy. That would be pretty. Like, he seems kind of OP in this particular scene.
Yeah. He's. I mean, I love the cinematics of how they have IG 80 or IG 11, sorry, moving around in all the fight scenes. I mean, going way back to I was rewatching some of the earlier ones too. How like his almost like default function is must self I gotta self destruct here. Don't self destruct. I'm gonna self destruct. Don't self destruct. I was kind of waiting for for that to happen, and of course we eventually see it. But I just really love they put personality into a droid.
They did a great job of it. They did a real good
exactly.
job. And a different personality than it was before. Like it's you could still tell there's still a base personality in there, but he's still kind of this. He's just been reprogrammed, and it's great. But he creates a big enough distraction that now our heroes can like kind of storm out while there's a huge distraction going on, and so we do see a lot of people getting shot, and the Mando kind of squares off with a couple of death troopers, and they. Granted, he's able to take them, but they don't go down easy. And I really liked that they made them a little bit more formidable than the regular stormtroopers, without making them like straight up OP, which was good.
Yeah.
And then of course we get this great scene of the Mando walking over to the E-Web and then picking it up. Like this had to have been pure adrenaline on his part. This thing looks heavy.
I really didn't like this part of the episode, to be 100% honest. I just think that the whole setting up of the E-Web, they take time to compartmentalize the build, the tripod out. They got multiple people lifted over onto the tripod, and then he single-handedly goes over, wields it like it's like a hip-mounted machine gun, and starts mowing people down. It's cinematically. Yes. Is it epic?
Yeah.
Sure, exactly. I just maybe wish that the E-Web just wasn't used. And then for a weapon of mass destruction to later just get blown up by a single blaster hit to the canister that they blatantly put out in front of the weapon just also seems a little bit out of place. But
I think it was behind the weapon. I think it was in but because like the dude was like Moff Gideon was kind of behind the scenes, like
true. Yeah,
I think there's ways to kind of nitpick that, but yeah, I agree with your point because I will admit I thought the same thing. I was just like, wait a second, we could just pick that up. Why did they need all of that? And so like I analyzed it a little bit the second time, and I'm like, well, a lot of what they were doing was they were setting up the power cable and the generator to it. And so when he picked it up, he didn't disconnect. Like he still kept all those other pieces intact. But I was thinking he probably don't need to do that. You could just spin it around like you did before. Like the same way he did in the first episode.
Right. This is what I was saying. I think we are maybe there's another sub story there where we're kind of seeing that his go-to is I'm going to find the biggest gun in the room. And use that. Everything at his disposal, he tends to gravitate towards. So I was not surprised that the E-Web came off and was used. I almost, I want to say that I can predict it because obviously I've seen it now, but it definitely was getting used in that fight scene. I knew that.
I have a prediction in season 2, maybe even in the first episode, but I would say within the first 3 episodes of season 2, we're going to see another indication where he goes for the biggest gun in the room. And it backfires on him. We're gonna see like some of his go-to tactics fail him, and that's gonna be more character development. It's like crap. I guess I'm gonna have to learn how to use this ninja sword or something like that, right?
Right.
Be kind of interesting. So again, Moff Gideon's showing that he's smart. I like smart villains. We saw this kind of it reminded me of episode 3 when he was kind of hiding on that. On that transport, and the droid was driving it out of the city, and then like everybody's shooting him and missing, and then like Greef Karga is like, no, I'm going to shoot the droid pilot and crash the transport. So like a smart villain, gets it done. Moff Gideon here does the same thing. First he shoots Mando in the head, realizes, oh, that's real Beskar. Okay, I can't penetrate that. Then kind of aims for the generator, huge explosion.
Yep.
And I was instantly thinking that's something you could do with Legion, right? You could have it be like, okay, it's a super, super OP gun, but if somebody kills it, it hurts everybody within like distance 1 of it. So all of a sudden, now it's like it's a liability at the same time or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm theory crafting too much there, but we get a great scene of Mando getting knocked down.
Yeah, any area of effect weapons would be nice for Legion. I think that it's there's a mechanic that can be definitely had there, and maybe we start to see that a little bit with Smoke Grenade actually.
Well, I mean, we started to see that in the first Special Forces pack with the saboteurs, but they have to like put themselves in in there. Now, if you had a like a mine launcher, that would
Right.
be that would be borderline OP. That would have to be really expensive. Like I could see that being a hard point for an ATST, like a mine launcher, and make it cost like a 30-point upgrade or something like that. And it might
Yeah.
even
I mean,
yeah.
I think what you're saying is maybe I don't know, maybe a new weapon disabled or weapon destroyed. Maybe there's some sort of a critical effect. If you roll a surge and then you roll a second surge in a row, that's a critical critical damage, and your weapon
Oh no,
actually does have.
I was saying I like that. I like what you're saying there, but I was actually saying something like in the same way that your saboteur can place a mine token, somebody who can basically launch it up to distance 3. So you can place that mine from really far away. You can place it from safety and then have the freedom to detonate it. But I feel like that's too that might be too OP. So like you'd have to really leverage like okay, but then it doesn't go off for 2 turns, so everybody can move away from it or something. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so they kind of pull Mando inside the house, and then we get this really cool reveal of the incinerator trooper kind of walking up. And I was just thinking, oh man, they have this. They sell the helmets for these. They have the action figure for these. It was from like Battlefront 1. I think this guy was also in The Force Unleashed. So like really really cool to see an incinerator trooper like canonized. So I loved that. And man, this guy's weapon was really, really far. It made me think like maybe he would have a flame weapon at distance 1 to 2 for Legion because it was beautiful, like really, really well done. And he had his own music that played too. I don't know if everybody picked up on that, but
Yeah, and I think it's kind of cool too how they very similar, like maybe a World War II style flamethrower trooper, where you're kind of going in solo. You're not going to be followed by a crew. You're not going to be like, because there's the inherent danger of if you ever have the canisters explode, you are as devastating to the people standing around you as you are with the weapon going off. So I really liked how they sort of
same
just
thing
sort
with
of
the E-Web actually we just saw too, right?
Yeah,
Maybe that's part of Moff Gideon's thing is like he clearly doesn't care who dies. If you like we said if you the scout troopers were like he just killed an officer that interrupted him.
Yeah, interrupted him. Yeah, so maybe we won't interrupt him now. So yeah, I love that line. So
Love it. It was so good. So this guy comes in, and of course we see Baby Yoda kind of stop. And this was actually really good because at the same time that this guy was kind of walking in, Mando's wounded, and he's like, oh, it's too late for me. I'm like, wait a second. We know Baby Yoda can heal. Why don't we just have Baby Yoda kind of stick his little hand underneath the mask?
I also thought this.
I was thinking the same thing, but we also know, and I think this is like they've done a really good job of kind of world building here. We know that since he's a child, when he uses the Force, it drains him significantly, and so he uses the Force like in a big way to stop this incinerator trooper, and it knocks him out. Like he's like almost goes into a coma after this, or he's at least knocked unconscious.
Yep.
So like really well done, and it perfectly explained why you thought like I was afraid Mando was dead here, but they all leave. IG finally takes the helmet off, and it's a great explanation. I didn't think we were going to get to see him without his helmet, at least not in this season. But I stand here proven wrong, and I also thought that if we did get to see him without his helmet, that there would be a surprise, like because granted we know what the actor looks like in real life, but there's a little part of me thinking it's like, but they could do so many surprises, like they could make him like have an alien's face, like he could be like a Zabrak or something like that, or like Darth Maul with got the horns, or just do something that the audience would never expect. But no, they made him just look normal, and it was like a good explanation. Like, well, I'm no living being, so it doesn't count, doesn't break your creed. So, like that.
Just going back to the incinerator trooper coming in, I just don't know why, but I just felt like, okay, I think that you wanted to obviously demonstrate a little bit of the Yoda's Baby Yoda's powers there. But why would nobody have fired a shot at that guy? Like he got to stand there and free willing just unload the flame in there. IG never fired a shot. Nobody fired a shot, and I
That's
just
a really good point.
and nobody really took cover. It was kind of like everyone, and maybe they were just that whole like we're caught. There's nothing we can do. We're goners. I think that was probably the cinematic feel of that. But I was just like, geez, any other time
they may not have also known that he was by himself. Like he's just like, oh, he's the first in a line of like 100 or whatever. And we also know that he can kind of incinerate that place from outside. He doesn't even have to step in there.
Yeah. So yeah, that I mean, I thought maybe the shock value, as it's getting pointed out in chat. I think for sure. But just some of those things, I'm just thinking like, I'm trying to position myself as I'm someone there. What am I doing? There's any other time they're, like I said, just pulling up blasters, they're shooting, they're trying to go after them, but I think they felt helpless. They looked helpless, and I think that was kind of the feel they were going for.
Yeah, I can agree with that. At the same time, I'm going to say it was probably half and half. Like, I got to give it that it was shock. It was you had to get that cinematic scene. If they had all just done that, you wouldn't have gotten the big moment with Baby Yoda. And Baby Yoda's thing was only going to work if everybody else like chilled out for a second. So it made for a better scene.
Yeah, and honestly, Mando just gets healed if Baby Yoda doesn't use his power anyway, right? So I think they had to like compound the fact like, okay, Yoda's not available to help you out.
Yes.
So I think that played into it for sure. But yeah, it was just a little bit too compact for me, kind of thinking like, oh.
It might have made sense. It might have made a little more sense if they were working on trying to get that sewer grate open, and they were all like distracted by that.
Exactly.
And,
like
that might have actually been in the thing. Like we don't know what gets cut from the episode for time and what doesn't. Granted, I don't think time should matter. When people are used to like once a week streaming shows, big budget shows to last an hour, like how many times did people watch Game of Thrones for like an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes each episode? And most of these are only a half an hour. So I would hope they're not cutting too much because they're already short as it is. But
I think you pointed out that would have been perfect. They're all working on the grate. Yoda's like kind of kicking in the back there, and then he storms in unaware, and then does the big save, right? Like saves the group,
and maybe like, the group like turn around, like Kara turns around, and it's almost like in slow motion, and she doesn't have time because he's already on her, and that's when So they at least they see what he's done, which is cool. But I like the whole back to spray thing. Like the back to spray works good. Again, more like they do a lot of explanation of exactly why things like there's a lot of fan service in here. And the back to spray, and as he, like a little bit later, he's like, I can stand now, and like the little line of that means the back to is working. Like that's there to like to spell it out for you, so you don't have to nitpick and be like, well, maybe they were working on the grate, like we just did, right? And as much as we can, kind of dissect these little details. I'm amazed at how many details we don't have to dissect because they're spelling them out for, which is really, really cool. And Star Wars, like the films, don't do that for you, And as much as I really enjoyed the sequel trilogy, I've got to be honest, it doesn't spell those things out for you. And part of that is probably because they're movies and they're trying to cram a whole lot of stuff into like 2 hours or less. So, So we get down into the sewers and where the Mandos were, and of course we find all this pile of armor, which is like, oh no, they're all dead. And that was your first reaction. I mean, that was my first reaction. It's like, oh crap, the Empire got here. And we find out, of course, that priestess. I don't know if she's got a name yet, but the armorer, shows up and she's like the last one, and you get this great, like you get a lot of time with her. Like they have a lot of discussion here. Which is pretty interesting. First off, he asks her the question like, did everybody die? And she's like, I don't think so. Some might have escaped, which is perfect because it sets the scene for him to have run-ins with, some of these characters later in the future. But they also talk about the Jedi because like she's like, who's the child and stuff. So she's like, oh, I know what he is. There were these sorcerers that fought against Mandalore, and so like it's kind of cool. They're going really, really back. They're going really far back here, and I like that. Like she referred to them as sorcerers because it's like because people who people don't know what's really going on. People who haven't been taught about the Force. It's the same thing. How Luke didn't really know about the Force, and he was central to the story. Like in Episode 4. And like his aunt and uncle knew about it pretty firsthand, and they never talked to him about it. So for a lot of people, it's mythology. So like we get a lot of stuff in this whole scene. So I like that. He earns his sigil.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was really cool, and it had some meaning. Although it looks like it's like a rhinoceros horn, which
I think it's going back to, I forget what they're called, the
mud horn.
Yeah, the mud horn.
It is okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right.
Remember, like when she's like talks about like, did you get your sigil yet, or your symbol or whatever?
Yeah.
And he says yes, and then
but I was helped.
Like, I didn't earn it, right? I was helped. But then I think it comes back around that maybe now where he's helping Yoda, maybe I don't know if that whole ties in, but
you're exactly right. I initially thought it was like that looked like the Mudhorn, but I initially just dismissed it because no, he declined the Mudhorn, so it couldn't be it. But no, so now you guys are, and some people in the chat are like, yeah, that's the Mudhorn, because where he couldn't get it before, now that it was, because he said he was helped by an enemy, and the way that he described the whole thing, he didn't know he was my enemy. Well, he's clearly not your enemy anymore. So this is the Mudhorn is your sigil because you're a clan of two. He's your son, so he was allowed to help you, right? Like you are as his father, so he's allowed to help you here. And then so it's the Mudhorn. All right, I love it. I absolutely love it. You know how many Mudhorn tattoos people are going to get over this next year?
Well, I won't be one of them, but
I'm not really big on unless I find the perfect thing. But now, if the Mudhorn had nunchucks, I would be all about it. But yes, yeah. So I like that. I wonder if Baby Yoda will eventually adopt that sigil. Like he'll have something like if they ever do part ways, like he'll probably have like a T-shirt with the Mudhorn on it and be like, "Rock on, dude!"
Mudhorn for life.
Yes, Mudhorns for. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And he also gets a jetpack. Like. This whole scene,
the jetpack was very cool.
We kind of saw it coming too, so it didn't come as a total surprise, right? But
I thought it was a almost comical that it's like you're not quite ready for this. IG, you hang on to this and can carry it around for Mando. Like he couldn't even carry his own jetpack.
Well, I think there's a little more to that. He also was still healing from the Bacta, so he might not have had the strength to carry a heavy jetpack at the moment. Yeah. Also, possibly, but yeah, still great scene. Like this whole scene, and this was a good 10 minutes of the episode. I think that they were in here. Just felt like a lot of these episodes feel like they're from a video game. Like this is like that in between. Like this is the save. Like this is the town. Like the inn that you go to restock. Like she even says, like restock your munitions, and she gives him he levels up. It's like this is like that. Like you finish the first half of the game, now you're gonna power up and get ready for the second half of the game or something like that. So like they're recharging, they're getting all the answers to their questions. And he gets his sigil, he levels up, he gets his jetpack. Everybody gets to restock their munitions. You see him pick up more grenades, and all of this stuff is really cool because you knew he was out of a lot of stuff. He'd used all those whistling birds, all of that stuff. So I loved just about everything about this scene. I thought it was great. And of course, she gives him the whole mission about how you are as his father now, which I thought there was some Darth Vader synergy here. And I'm going to go back a little bit because, first off, okay, like obviously, I am your father, right? Like that. But then at the end of Return of the Jedi, I'm going to rewind the slides a little bit, but when he's laying there, and the IG takes his mask off, it's a lot like when Luke takes Anakin's mask off, and you see Anakin Skywalker there. They're laying in almost the exact same position. So I'm seeing some, a little bit of this back and forth of where it's like, hey, you're kind of like, I'm just seeing some Darth Vader kind of symmetry. Not exactly the same, but there's some parallels. I don't know if they're laying. I don't. I feel like they might be low key laying the groundwork for him becoming a Force user, just little by little over time. And I could be totally wrong about this, but I feel like it's possible.
Yeah, I think you nailed the cinematics for sure. That scene, yeah, there probably is a lot of parallels that are very purposefully done, and we probably don't even catch them all, and nor will we for some time. But as
Sure.
we kind of we watch them in, this will make you want to go back and watch all the episodes. I was actually working my way back through the episodes today. Finished up, and I've watched some of those episodes probably 4 or 5 times. Just you
There's
pick
so
up
many things you can miss too. Yeah.
Exactly. And then when you're starting to watch it for different purposes, right? You watch it through the first time because you want to make sure that you get it done before somebody spoils it on the internet. So you kind of rush through that. You want to make sure you get the initial watch done. But then when you go back and you start really looking at those really, really subtle things, and you pick up more and more as you go. And I didn't even draw the parallel between Luke and with Vader that you just alluded to now, but then you go back and show the picture, and it's like, yeah, that bingo, you nailed it.
Well, I think one of the things that I do is like I'll go through and I'll be grabbing screenshots of stuff, and as I try to find one that I think captures a scene, it makes me look at it differently than when grabbing a screenshot. I kind of look through a different set of eyes than I do when I'm just watching it, in motion. And so sometimes I'll pick up things that I might have missed otherwise. So like doing this whole thing is pretty fun. Yes, and they do call it the Rising Phoenix for the jetpack, which is I love like the almost the Dungeons and Dragons kind of names for their like I feel like these Mandos, like when they're not working, they're sitting around rolling like polyhedral dice playing D&D or something like that. Okay, so we get to one of my favorite scenes of this episode where the priestess or the armorer or whatever, I feel like she's a religious kind of leader, like she's like a high bishop or something, like their religion is weapons and armor and stuff, but she is she's like sitting there like all like in prayer or in silent meditation, and all these stormtroopers come in, and she just lets them have it. This was beautiful.
Yeah. It was a wicked fight scene, and you know what? Thinking about parallels, her sitting there or kneeling there with the weapons in wait kind of reminded me of Qui-Gon waiting for the whatever you call them, the ray shielded the doors that open to fight Maul, and that I did pick up when I was watching, and I was like, oh, this is very much like that.
It was. She's very
silent meditation, and
she might even be. I mean, we don't know how many people are force sensitive in the galaxy or whatever, but she certainly had. And of course, you don't have to be. Not everything in Star Wars has to deal with the Force, but I'm of the mindset that it's cooler if some things do. And and I would like for the Force to have something to do with any Star Wars story, since it's one predominant thing that makes the Star Wars universe different than our universe. And so, like, I kind of think, at least in my head canon, maybe she was a little force sensitive. She was certainly, meditating and kind of gathering her inner peace, which, maybe like somebody like Chirrut Imwe would have done, And so
right.
You don't necessarily have to be a Jedi to at least be maybe in tune or somewhat force sensitive. There could be like those low levels of force sensitivity, and I feel like Chirrut had that. I mean, honestly, dude shot down a TIE fighter with and he's blind, so like you gotta have you gotta have a little bit of force to do that.
Yeah.
So
we also discovered that 4 point blank blasters are no match for forge tools. That's for sure. So
well, apparently, there was actually a movie.
Five. I guess there's. Five.
I guess it was 5. Yes. Did you ever see this movie called Equilibrium with Christian Bale? It came out in I think the late '90s or early 2000s. It was basically there were gunfighters,
so.
And they were trained in like the art of ballistics and stuff, and how to basically they could dodge bullets like at close range, and it was kind of like a scene from that movie. But I won't get too far off topic. Cool movie though, very underrated. So our guys get to the the tunnel where the lava lakes are, and we see this like they get this astromech with arms and legs to kind of rise up and start rowing like. It looked like a Grim Reaper kind of like the ferryman, like coming to take you across to the underworld or something. Very creepy.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that was a pretty grim scene, and then of course they realize, hey, there's a whole bunch of stormtroopers down here, and I guess they kind of have no options, which I thought was kind of strange.
I do have to ask, just because some of this stuff does catch me at times. What is the paddle made out of? If nothing can go in the lava. How are they moving? obviously the same material the boat's made out of, but I just
It could be
again
made
one
out
of
of
those things that
obsidian or something. I mean, I have a feeling like there's the, I'm not really that big into like what chemistry, but I think there's certain things that aren't going to melt. Like in the same way that the types of I'm going to go back to episode 2. They're in that droid factory. They're pouring like this molten steel into these giant
right,
jugs. Well, those things don't melt, obviously. They're and
right,
I think they probably would if they were left in there permanently. But like he's able to like he out and then in, so it's not getting 100% exposure 100% of the time. I mean, IG even sustains a decent amount of time in the lava while he's walking through. So.
yeah.
I think if you're a strong enough type of alloy or something like that, it can probably last for a little while in the lava. That's my guess.
Yeah, it was. I get it. The boat. I'm not sure if that had any significant meaning or not. Like again, I don't recall too. Did Mando make any sort of reference to any anti-droid sentiments there at that point?
There was like the whole scene where like the droid was like, you like the droid kind of knew that it's like it's okay, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. He's like, no, no, I don't like droids. He's like, no, you're like they had kind of like a goodbye because you kind of feel like he didn't want IG to die, but he
No, no, no. Sorry. I was referring to the droid rowing the boat. He didn't because at any other
oh
point up to this point, he always is like he makes a point to like no droids, anti-droid, don't touch, blah blah blah. I just can't remember if there was anything at that moment.
I don't think so.
Um,
I may have just been so surprised at the fact that this was so creepy and distracting to see. Like, I have
yeah,
to go watch it again with subtitles because sometimes, like, if you're really looking for little things, if you watch with subtitles turned on, it'll like you might pick up on a little piece of like background text, that
yep,
like some stormtroopers talking about the new model of speeder that just came out or whatever that you might not have noticed.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious again if because that would be probably the first time when there's a droid interaction that he doesn't make a comment about it. And as I said, that alludes to kind of what I was saying earlier, where he's kind of maybe coming around to
Yeah, a little
the
show.
usefulness of droids. Yeah,
At the same time, though, he had another droid with him, so maybe he's like not going to talk about droids when there's present company.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Yeah,
So
and and of course they have their moment in the boat. So
they do. Then, of course, IG does the self destruct, takes out all the stormtroopers. I gotta feel like, granted, I get it, but I feel like they've gunned down more stormtroopers than that. Like, I feel like they should have at least CGI'd in like twice as many stormtroopers because it just didn't feel like what was there like 10 of them out there? There's like 4 of them, and each one of them can easily do 4 to 1. Like
right.
I feel like they could have taken it. And I mean, Mando had charges too. He could have just thrown one out there. Like I feel like when we get into the whole nitpick stuff. Like I feel like that's one of those things where like they didn't have to sacrifice a character. It was part of the story and a part of Mando's development to kind of feel bad for losing a droid or something. That's kind of
But
why.
do you think maybe because we lost Queel and IG kind of in that close proximity, that was sort of tying that all together? Like
I had said earlier I kind of expected IG to say I have spoken and like right off into the sunset with Mando, and Mando kind of thinking, hey, my friend Queel is now part of this droid, so I'm going to accept him and he's going to help me overcome my hatred of droids, and that was going to be like the odd couple and that was going to be part of the dynamic in future seasons. That was kind of what I
right,
was expecting. So I didn't want him to die because I kind of wanted my prediction to come true. So I
right.
was just a little more annoyed at this part than I mean, annoyed isn't the right word, but like I was just like, oh, really? I don't see there being that many, and we know that they don't have aim anyway. So like I feel like they could have just walked right out there and just be like, boom, 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 we got you. Plus,
Yeah.
Mando he just restocked, so he should have whistling birds. He should have all of that stuff. He should have all of his munitions. Or he could have even put the jetpack on and like shot out really fast, and they wouldn't have known what was going on. So, we got a little Wookiee with us, huh?
Little visitor, yeah. She did make the stream last night, so I
Oh,
think she was disappointed. So I said I put it on stream tonight. So
adorable, adorable. We actually just adopted a dog yesterday.
oh, nice.
We had tried it like a week or two ago, but she ended up like biting the kids like every single day, so we had to take her back and got a new German Shepherd mix, and she's adorable. And yeah, no, she's not coming on. She's not coming on Scream though. All right, so they get out, and the of course we see Moff Gideon attacking everybody with a TIE fighter, and you know he's doing this like a bombing run on him, and of course Mando decides, hey, let's put this new jetpack to work, and of course he flies the thing up. I love how they made it to where he wasn't very good at it the first time he tried to use it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that was fitting. I thought it fit the scene great. I also like how like he looked like he attempted to throw a charge on, but his arm got thrown back, and the first one was a failure too. So it didn't go all perfectly and according to plan, which I think this whole series kind of has that sort of feel that occasionally they do run into situations that aren't always in their favor.
it's like they took every criticism that a lot of like hardcore fans had about some of the new movies, and then applied them to this and said, no, we're going to explain everything. We're going to do this for the fans and also make it something that like people who aren't hardcore fans can enjoy at the same time. It's like, I don't know. I feel like they struck gold here, and with just about everything that they've done. And it makes me kind of feel bad. It's like, there's no way next season can be as good as this season. Like I feel like so many shows do that. Like they have this amazing breakout season, and then people's expectations are all like, my expectations were kind of middle of the road when this show first started, and it's been knocking it out of the park ever since. So yeah,
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about the pace of the show for the first couple episodes. Just thinking it was a little bit too slow paced for me to kind of feel like I was in. However, I do think because the pace was a little bit slower, I was actually absorbed more by the story, and I was not so concerned about amazing cinematics or special effects or all that sort of stuff. So I actually enjoyed the series because it was a little bit different than the movies.
Yeah, no,
that movie
definitely.
style. Yeah.
Right. It's like it's like they took a whole story that could have been a movie and spread it out over maybe like 5 hours worth of 8 episodes, and between a half an hour 45, between like about 5. It's like a 5-hour movie, so you were able to really tell a comprehensive story with a lot of explanation. Had you tried to put all that in a 2-hour movie, you would have cut out all the explanation. You would not have answered any of the questions, and you would have left people unsatisfied. So that kind of has me really excited for everything they do in the future, like the Obi-Wan series that they're going to do, the Cassian Andor series. Like they're going to be able to explain the things that the fans want to have explained. So that's exciting. So he kind of lands, like I love his landing after he kind of blows the wing off the TIE fighter. He kind of comes down. He's like, all right, I made it. It's like my sentiment was like, all right, I stuck the landing. I don't look stupid, do I? Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna have to practice some more.
I would have been okay if he came in with like sort of almost a pseudo crash landing, like a little bit of stumbling, maybe pick himself up, dust himself off, look around to see if anybody saw that.
Exactly. Like did I get up quick enough? I meant to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, he did great. And so of course you get like a great scene of them kind of with the sun is now beginning to set. So it's like and I wonder if there's any similarity, like maybe that's why he said, I'll give you till nightfall, because they knew it was going to end as nightfall began, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically they could still be in the cantina deciding what they were going to do at this point. So
it would have made for a really boring episode.
Yes, exceptionally.
Actually, the funny thing is I didn't get screen grabs of this as much, but I thought it was really funny during the whole time that they're doing all this negotiation in the cantina. Greef Karga has got all this spotchka. He's got like, and he keeps pouring drinks. He's like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna get as much free drink as I can. Like he's not necessarily a good guy.
Every time,
he's not a bad guy.
Every time.
So
every time Moff Gideon name drops, he takes a shot. So.
But yeah, so he decides he's not going to stay there with them. Cara Dune is going to stay, be Moff Gideon's, or I'm sorry, Greef Karga's enforcer. Mando says he can't, but he seems like he will be welcomed back. So it seems like like their beef is settled. They're cool now. So it kind of seems like all right, happy ending. Everybody's on leaving on good terms. We can expect to see them again, and I especially want to see Cara Dune again. Although I mean, I'm fine, with seeing Greef Karga again. By the way, did you catch earlier when they were talking about what a Mandalorian was, and he goes, it's a creed, because he was Apollo Creed.
Yes.
Little things like that. I don't know if those were like deliberately put in there to make you kind of giggle a little bit or not, but I love stuff like that.
I fully suspect. I think there's lots of stuff in there. So just a little mannerisms of Baby Yoda are great. I love the interaction. I love their sort of relationship where Mando's basically warming up. Before it was like, get in the carriage, get in the carriage, like constantly doing that. But now they're, even with the ball on the controls, the hey, you hang on to this,
The signet.
The signet, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like those things are really, I think, laying groundwork for the relationship that they're going to be building here. So
That's true. Yeah, I really like so much of the detail. And again, this is like one of the things I talked about before. As he's flying away, Baby Yoda looks back in the same way that a young Din Djarin looked back as he was being carried away by it. So like now it's come full circle.
yep,
And again, another Darth Vader line. The circle is now complete. Right.
right.
Again, I'm just the mind wants to see patterns, so I'm forcing it at this point. But yeah, and of course, then as you think the episode's over, of course we find out. I had a feeling that TIE fighter wasn't destroyed when it went down, and it was just
There's
black
no
smoke.
explosion.
Yeah, it was just
There's no explosion.
It was dust. Yeah, so yeah, he was able to kind of salvage the landing a little bit, and starts cutting it open, and we're like, wait, what is that? What is that? That's not. That couldn't be. And sure enough, it's the Darksaber. And he stands on top of the TIE fighter, like in a totally like villainous pose with this cape. I'm like, who needs a cape? If you wear a cape, you're probably a villain.
No capes.
Yeah.
No capes. But yeah, so I love that. What a great end. Like totally setting up stuff for season 2. Absolutely love the end.
I also appreciated the Jawas already scavenging off the TIE fighter. Like,
They were.
it's still smoldering. Moff Gideon's not even out yet. But that goes right back to like when they're taking off Mando's ship, right? Yeah, there you go. You got a great scene there. Yeah, fantastic. It's like, this ship is still smoldering and Jawas are set to work on it. So
That was wonderful. And it shows you they're on every planet,
Yeah.
apparently. It's not like they're native to
Exactly.
Tatooine.
Exactly.
I also saw some similar, like, I mentioned Darth Vader a couple of times, but like if you ever saw Star Wars Rebels, when Darth Vader comes down on top of his TIE fighter, it's also on one of the art cards for the Vader Operative, him standing on top of his TIE, like as it kind of comes down. It's like there's a lot of imagery. I feel like, maybe they're planting seeds for Darth Vader, or maybe not at all, and maybe they're just borrowing Star Wars imagery from all of the Star Wars imagery that we have. But it was just a great end, and I loved seeing a live action Darksaber. Like that was so cool. Like
well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very well done. I loved it because it had to look a little bit more spectacular than normal, and I can't wait to see it close up. Like I can't wait to see a duel. So I think we kind of got to dive into like, all right, that wraps up the whole thing. But like, what do we think for season 2 at this point? Right, like. Only thing I know is that it's going to be fall of 2020. It's confirmed that they're doing season 2. And Jon Favreau teased on Twitter, like yesterday, a picture of a Gamorrean, like a Gamorrean guard, but without all the armor on. It was like a topless Gamorrean, and he looked kind of beaten up, like his tusks were kind of knocked off a little bit. So makes me think Jabba's palace, like all those guys are now out of work, Or maybe he's going to Gamoria. Maybe they're just gonna, or it might not have anything to do with Gamoria. He might just be a single character, like Queel, who's just like a one-off, and he happens to be in an episode or something. But
Right.
I think they're going to explore more of the Purge and the lore of more of the legacy of Mandalore.
Do you think that there's any? I'm just trying to think. Like, okay, Clan of Two. Mando did try to recruit Queel, and he's gone back to Cara Dune a couple times. Does Mando start to develop a bit of a crew come season 2?
Oh yeah, he could definitely come back. He could get Grief Karga again. He could get Cara Dune again. I'm sure he could call in a favor from them. He might get a crew. He might get a Sinister Six, kind of like a team of. Because don't forget, in episode 5 was it where they kind of went on the heist, to spring that prisoner. He made some enemies and he left them alive. And they have shown that they're willing to pull other characters back, and so he might have made some enemies, and I could see them coming back for revenge. Although I don't think they have to, because those guys already wanted revenge on him anyway, or at least some of them
Yeah.
did. So
I'm just thinking that maybe there's, we've lost a couple, let's call them crew member, or like, at least acquaintances here
yes,
in ID.
allies.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
But
how about the
now,
mechanic from Tatooine that he landed?
fair,
Yeah,
yeah, and maybe the droids are more welcome this time. Who knows?
that would be one of those low key things. If he lands there again and he doesn't dismiss them from his ship, that's like
Yeah,
small evidence of progression, or even if he
yeah,
makes a little remark like, "Don't you break my ship," like, well, he
yeah,
didn't stop you, so that's partial. It's not like, again, in the past, Star Wars has had like characters shift their allegiances like way too quickly. Like, when I always thought Anakin in Episode 3, like from when he went to the dark side, was like, it was too rushed. He went from like, we're gonna arrest this guy, we're gonna Jedi Knight, to, oh, I guess I'm the ultimate evil, like, just like that. And it was just like, 20 more minutes in that episode. They could have probably made that a little more gradual, but yeah, like, I feel like they're doing stuff more gradually, and it makes a lot more sense because this is a TV series and they don't have to cram it all into one movie.
right.
So yeah, I want to see, some. I'm hoping we'll see more of the dark saber. But if we do, the armorer, the priestess, she kind of said, well, you need to return him to his people. Now, at first, the first watch, I was thinking, find that race, explore Yoda's race some more. They could go in that direction, but
Yeah,
alternatively, I'm going to throw you a kind of a sideball here. They could explore, because he's like, so wait, you're telling me I have to be this kid's dad, and then until I can return him to a couple of Jedi sorcerers or something like that. So he's thinking this guy's people are Jedi, not just little green men, but specifically any Jedi. So he might go in
right.
search of Luke Skywalker, or I don't think he'll find Luke Skywalker, because then they'd have to do like a CGI Mark Hamill, make him look younger. I don't think they're going to do that for this show. But
Yeah.
I
But I think that, I mean, obviously that's going to be a driving narrative for season two. I think is the search for people,
yes,
for Baby Yoda's people, and maybe similar to season one, where he does end up on a couple different worlds and kind of has those different interactions.
yeah, you've
That's
got to
what I
have
was
something
kind of.
driving the whole. Yeah, like, exactly. And so he probably will establish new allies and new enemies along the way.
But I'm just thinking that maybe some of those individuals are going to be like kind of pieces of the knowledge around maybe the Jedi. Maybe they have like, I think I know where they, might be some. And so like, well, come along so you can kind of be my reference. And then they end up on another one. And I kind of see that there's probably going to be some development. And somebody had pointed out it would be a clan, not a crew. Fair enough. I don't know what a relationship they'll eventually have, because I think crew, because maybe they'll come and go a little bit more fleetingly, than be sort of solidified in terms of a relationship with Mando. But I do think that there's going to be some people who are going to be pieces to the puzzle, and the ultimate puzzle being to get Yoda back to his people. Who his people are, I don't know.
And I don't know if that's even going to be the end game. Like, it may not end at season 2. It may very well be that it ends like at season 7 or something like that. And and we don't get that, but instead we just get more pieces of the puzzle and add more questions, right? I have a feeling that, let's just say one eventuality is he ends up finding some Jedi. Maybe it's a tie-in with Dave Filoni and Ezra, right? Because look, Dave Filoni loves to kind of do fan service to his own projects and stuff, and so this would be a great way to go forward with Ezra and Thrawn and everything that happened after the end of Star Wars Rebels. Maybe Ezra's training new Jedi, or Ezra's like an older man now, and he runs into him, and Ezra's like, "Hey, I can train you." Like that's something they can totally do. But if that happens, maybe he's like, "Wait, you?" And he's like, I can say one of you guys is very powerful with the Force. And of course, everybody thinks he's talking about Baby Yoda. And it looks at the Mando at the end, is like, "You have untapped potential. I can sense it." And so maybe you come to find out that the Mando ends up becoming a Jedi. Or at least a Force user. They might not go straight Jedi, because I think they're trying to get away from like every Force user has to be a Jedi. Or they could bump into Ahsoka. Like, that would be a really cool opportunity, because Dave Filoni, like, he was asked like, "Hey, would you ever want to see like Ahsoka on live screen?" And he gave this smile, like he knew a whole lot more than he could talk about.
Yeah, she's got her own series.
I feel like the makeup would be hard for a character like that to do a whole series on. So I feel like they would do a cameo here and there with her, but I don't know if they'd do. But imagine if she's part of the crew. But all in all, I expect at some point Mando's going to have to fight Moff Gideon, and Moff Gideon's going to use the Darksaber.
For sure.
And what would Mando use? But hopefully he'll have a lightsaber, right? Like kind of like how Sabine had to duel in Star Wars Rebels. Like she had to use, she used Ezra's lightsaber to fight whoever it was had the Darksaber at the time. So I just feel like we're going to see a Mandalorian Jedi.
I think whatever happens, I think their next interaction, Moff Gideon and Mando, he's gonna go away, having got whooped really bad, and needing to kind of reformulate his plan of attack. Because I think that's how the Darksaber is going to be revealed. Like it's going to be, here's his weapon. He has no idea how to combat this individual.
Maybe he loses a hand.
He's going to take a beating. He's going to have to go away. He's going to have to reformulate and come back, and then they'll have another potentially epic interaction.
It's bad enough, like poor Pedro Pascal's like, it's bad enough I have to work without using my face. Now I can't use a hand either. Come on, guys, you're making it really hard on me. It's all going to be shoulder power.
but then maybe he has to have that that interaction with the droid, and the droid gives him a mechanical.
He'll become
hand
part droid. Oh my god!
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, dude, we're cracking the case right here. You guys are hearing it here first. He's going to become part droid.
Hot takes.
Yes. So
for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. But anyway, there's a big bright future, I think, for this episode. We've got a lot of characters that are still alive from season 1 that they may or may not use. We may see some more of the New Republic. Apparently, there's some information about the state of the New Republic that's been revealed in like the latest book, but I don't want to get into too many spoilers. But because I have pretty high hopes for it. But great first season. I don't think season 2 will be able to do better, but I hope I'm wrong. What do you think?
I'm hopefully optimistic. I think season 1 was good. I want to think that season 2 will be on par. I want to think that it's going to. I might even enjoy it a bit more because it will be a continuation of a storyline that I've enjoyed up to this point. So, I guess I'm hopefully optimistic, but that's generally how I am about most things. So, as long as they keep the story flowing, I don't want to see any like sort of side tangent episodes sort of thrown in. So I'm really hoping that they steer clear of all that, and there's always this kind of a perpetual flow to this storyline. I'm okay with if it fits, because I kind of felt like the prison rescue episode was kind of like that.
It felt like a filler episode.
Exactly, and it was my least favorite for that exact reason. Mm-hmm. So I think if season 2 stays away from that, I think that it has potential to be just as good.
I understand what your point is, although I'm going to say that was one of my favorite episodes, primarily though.
Fair.
Because the gamer in me, like I talked about, like how I felt like meeting at the armorer's quarters was like a whole bonus level of a video gamer or something like that. Or I felt like that was an episode of an RPG. Like he meets and like, here's your crew, and like this guy's the leader, this guy's the shooter, she's the thief or the assassin, the one guy's the muscle, like it all fit into like a Star Wars RPG, and it was like perfect. And that's a game that actually some friends of mine have got me into lately, and I absolutely love it. And so I was looking at it through a different set of eyes, but I also agree I tend to not like filler episodes, and so if they're going to do filler episodes, I hope they fill in something really cool. Like I was really happy that we got to see X-Wings, so that kind of told me the New Republic still has T-65s at this point. Like I was hoping they would have shown a little bit something more, like maybe, like, hey, well, here is the new capital ship the Republic has, or something like that. But yeah, but overall, great show. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you guys are tuned in late or whatever, be sure and check out the Terrain Studio and Legion Academy. There are links for them down in the description below. Amazing stuff. So thank you, Shawn, for hanging out with us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It was good to talk about. I usually just watch it kind of in a siloed environment here. My wife's not big into chatting Star Wars, believe it or not. So,
yeah,
but it was good. good chatting and speculating about a few things. So I think we've seen that you and I can enjoy the show for many of the same reasons, and have different feelings about different episodes. But in the end, I think we're both quite optimistic and looking forward to season 2. I can say that without a doubt.
Absolutely. It's going to be a long wait, but we've got other things to hold us over. I mean, we got
Yeah.
another season of Clone Wars starting off in like 2 months-ish.
Yeah.
And then I don't know when the Obi-Wan or Cassian Andor series are coming out, but I mean, it's just great to have it. It's very, very cool.
I always play a little Legion in the interim as well. So
You can make your own stories. Yes, absolutely.
fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We got a lot more Legion coming up in next month and then the month after that, and hopefully we'll get some all new stuff too. Can't wait to see the new products that come out of that, and can't wait to see your new table too. So be sure to follow the Terrain Studio. We've got links down there. Check them out on YouTube. Support them on Patreon. You can get early access to stuff before everybody else can. So very cool stuff. All right, guys, that's all I got, and we will talk to you later, and see you next year for maybe the next Mando chat. Thanks, Shawn, again. You guys take care.
Yeah. Cheers.